think those are things you can incorporate into your everyday routine. And then, like I said, mindfulness or prayer, if you do practice a certain faith, then you can certainly, practice whatever you do within your faith. You can do some mindfulness. I think journaling is a great habit to get into, being able to write down some of your thoughts, especially if you're one of those people like me who tend to have your mind continuously going, even after the day is over. Getting to write things down can be really helpful. Stay connected. I know that it's hard, as a military spouse sometimes to find your circle, but I think, whether it's one person or two, whether it's, through a play group with the kids or, through communities like this, I do think it's important to find a community and stay connected to others that, understand the life that you're living. Move your body. You don't have to be a gym rat, but get out there and take a walk if you can, or go to the gym. Another great thing we have as military spouses, hopefully if you have access to base, a lot of times they have, free exercise classes that we can take advantage of. Do it. These are like a lot of times I think we focus on the negative parts of the military, but there are a lot of positives as well. And so that's one of those good positives, like utilize your gym. It's free. I will miss the day when we no longer have access to a base gym because paying for the gym is not fun. And then find ways to create joy and rest. I know that it can be extremely taxing, as a spouse, especially if you are potentially working yourself or have children. There's a lot you have on your plate, but I think even finding small ways to create joy and rest are beneficial. So sometimes I'll tell my clients, even if that's just 5 or 10 minutes of creating a playlist that you enjoy that makes you smile and listening to that playlist for 10 minutes of the day, or, taking a walk outside, or, cooking something that you really enjoy, or having a conversation with a friend that makes you smile. I think finding small ways to incorporate joy and rest into your life are beneficial, and it doesn't have to be something grand. Even the small things matter.
Can I
And
ask,
then, oh, yes, yes,
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead, Isabel.
just so you were raised by Nigerian parents.
Yes.
Were your parents, as you were growing up, what their routines in your house? I have most of my friends are Nigerian, so um, and maybe the fact that you were raised in here. I think in America. I think in America there is an emphasis a lot on routines, routines, routines. I've lived uh, Angola, Portugal, and the UK. That's where I lived most of my life. And I think as African families, we do have a routine, but the reason that emphasis on, okay, at this time you do this, at that time you do. I knew if when as a teenager, when I came home, I knew that my parents weren't home yet. And because I was the firstborn daughter, not child, I've got an older brother, I had to make sure that my siblings would have something to eat. So, do you know that type of routine? But now that I'm in the American environment and I have a child with ADHD,
Mm,
I realized that, oh, I think I'm a bit chaotic because I
mm,
think as an African, someone who grew up in an African environment, you just wake up, you know what to do, you do. But I find that sometimes in the American environment is very much by the tea. Okay, by this time, when people
hmm.
are talking to me, you know, 5 minutes doing this, 5 minutes, and I'm like, I'm gonna go crazy. I have lists for this, I have lists for that. And I'm always thinking, am I failing my child?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I've always been able
right.
to get at work on time, doing this on time. We always, but it seems as if I have to. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I really
I
struggle with that
do. And I
between
think you have to find your own balance, right? That's one
yeah.
of the things that over the years, I think I'm finally coming to that, especially with like social media nowadays. There's so much out there, and it's so easy to compare yourself to other people and what
Mm-hmm,
they're doing. But I always say, what works best in your house is what works best. And
mm-hmm,
so, yes, this other mom may have lists and calendars, and some of that may be good to you for you and your family, but maybe not to the same extent. And so I think you have to find what works for your family. As long
mm-hmm,
as it's working and everyone is healthy, I am okay with it. Now,
mm-hmm,
if you don't have anything and everyone is struggling, then I think it's important to find something. And so, I think finding a healthy balance, for example, I wouldn't say I like have strict routines, but we do have certain things that are in place. Like our kids go to bed at a certain time every night. And it's helpful because as a working mom, you know, I appreciate the fact that they already know the time. They go upstairs, we start taking showers. It's already a thing. And so it helps everything run smoother in our house. Um, there are also specific routines we have in the morning. We get dressed,
mm-hmm,
brush your teeth, eat breakfast, get your backpack, put your shoes on, and everyone knows what to do. So we're all on the same page versus a situation where it's like, mom, where's this? It would cause a lot of chaos in the morning. And we would all probably go to school and work feeling stressed before we even get there. And so that's what I mean by having routines in place. And that's why I put small routines. It doesn't have to be anything. If it's causing you more stress than it's helping, don't do it.
mm-hmm,
But if it's able to bring balance and mental wellness to the family, then I think it's worth it.
mm-hmm.
If you
Thank
don't
you.
mind me asking, so let me remind our audience that Abisola here is not only a counselor of over 12 years, she's also a foreign-born military spouse with 3 kids. And so, if anybody is aware of the challenges that military spouses go through, it would be her. And in that spirit, I wanted to also like touch on the routine part of the everyday
Hmm.
strategies. As military spouses and military families, routine is sometimes the chaos. The fact
Yeah.
that you have a whole plan, right? Like
And it
even
gets
down
thrown
to
out the
like
window.
right, like Friday is going to be date night, and then your husband or your wife, your spouse comes home and they're like, Friday I have duty, or like
Yeah.
on the
I
weekend I'm
mean,
going to
it
the
happened
field.
to me today. Real life example. I was sitting at work and my husband called me and he said, "Hey, I just found out I'm going to be gone all next week." Well, there goes,
Right.
and I think, that n- prior would have caused me a lot of stress. Not that it didn't still induce a little bit, but, I just, all right, well, got to figure out who's going to pick up the kids on this day and who's going to do that and when we're going to do this. Let me put a grocery order in real quick. And so I think that's also one of the things that makes us so phenomenal as military spouses. We are able to very quickly adjust because we have to. And I think that's one of our powers. We go with the flow. We're able to switch things up really quick because that's literally our life. I mean, things change all the time. With all your routines in place, they all get thrown out the window. And so, for me, I think the routines just help me, like I said, to keep a sense of calm and peace when possible, because we know sometimes they get thrown out the window. But when possible, it does help me to know what to expect. It helps my children, my partner to know what to expect. And it helps me feel like we're all on the same page and we're not just kind of all running around like, what is going on here?
So
And
for
so,
for a
yeah.
new military spouse, a new foreign-born military spouse that's not really familiar with the pivoting that happens all the time within the military life, what would be your recommendation or your prescription if
Yeah.
she is the kind of person or they are the kind of person that really thrive on, a plan or a strategy like myself. Like I have to plan everything a week ahead. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden your whole life goes into the wind. What would be your
Yeah.
recommendation?
I would say, one of the things that I did very early on, as a younger military spouse was I found an older military spouse that I kind of, like was my like go-to. And that was so good for me because she had been there. She was able to offer me a lot of insight and advice when stuff happened that I was like, wait, what, huh? What, what is going on? And she was also very positive. I think that within the military spouse community, you can come across a lot of negativity, a lot of Debbie Downers, unfortunately. So I feel like you do have to be careful with who you expose yourself to. And so, I would say for a new military spouse, try to find someone. And it could be somebody on Facebook. Like I've made friends on Facebook and Instagram, other military spouses we've never met in person, but we talk like we are BFFs, literally because we get each other's world. So we're like, hey, girl, and we've never met each other. Um, and so I would say try your best to find someone, at least one older military spouse that can kind of walk you through and encourage you through the journey. I feel like it really made a difference for me, and it really helped things that were sometimes very chaotic to feel a little bit more calm.
You're talking about how you met people virtually on Facebook and you become best friends. I think in FMSN, our group is what we created that for. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody can attest to the fact that it was an organic group that just was born out of a need, and it was for me a saving. What is it called? The little
Saving
buoy,
grace.
the little buoy that you find in the middle of the ocean, and you're trying to,
Oh, yes.
you know,
Yes.
to me, when I was new and I was, I'm not from America, I just was struggling to find someone to
Mm,
ask them, be like, hey, how did you deal with this? And the Foreign Born
yeah.
Military Spouse group was just the place that I didn't even know existed. I just looked it up on Facebook. I'm like, oh, maybe there are other people that might have come through
Be in the
this.
same
And
category. And that's what I've
yes,
done. I have literally just looked up, like typed in random things and I've come across Facebook groups. I mean, I found a mental health counselor, military spouse Facebook group that way. I found Facebook groups for like my kids' unique needs. So yeah, I think finding a
share with us that
community.
counselor Facebook group, please.
Yes, yes. Finding a community is golden, and I encourage everyone. I think one of the things that helps make this ride a little smoother is, finding community and putting yourself out there. And I know we're not all extroverts like myself, but, even if it's just one or two people, I think it makes the difference. And then, yeah, so this leads me to supporting one another, which this group is already doing, checking in on each other, checking in on your friends. Um, I made some really good friends at our last duty station, and we still check in on each other. Every now and then when I think about, any one of them, I send a text, hey, how's it going? What's going on? And those texts, sometimes come right in the nick of time. Be a listening ear. Listen without judgment. Sometimes people don't want advice. Sometimes they don't even necessarily need you to do anything. They just want you to listen. And so being a listening ear is so important. Normalize talking. I think nowadays, we live in such America is such an individualistic society. Everybody kind of stays to themselves and minds their own business. And that's good to some degree. But I think, as human beings, we were created for community and we need each other. And so normalize talking to each other and celebrating each other's progress, no matter how small it is. You know someone who's been struggling with getting their immigration papers through, like celebrate every little step because we need that encouragement. It really, really keeps us going on to the next day. So when do we reach out? I kind of talked about this already, but again, if you find yourself experiencing the things I said earlier and those symptoms are starting to last for weeks, it's not just like, oh, a day or two, I feel sad. No, I'm like, I've been feeling this way for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks. You should probably reach out again if it's impacting your daily functioning. Definitely reach out. If you're starting to have hopeless thoughts or thoughts of, hurting yourself, hurting anyone else, thoughts of, maybe not hurting yourself, but just, man, I wonder what it would be like if I just wasn't here or if I didn't have to deal with this. Those are definitely things that are cause for alarm. Um, and maybe you're not having any of those things that may seem a little more extreme, but you just need a neutral space. Again, it's just someone neutral to listen to you, to be able to vent to. Like, I think we all sometimes just need that, like somebody to talk to. Then reach out and find that for yourself. And what are some resources? Military One Source is a great resource. You can get virtual therapy, you can do phone counseling, and I believe it is 24/7, free of charge to all service members, to spouses, family members. So use Military One Source, and not just for counseling, for everything. Literally, everything is on Military One Source, whether it's PCS questions, CDC questions, healthcare questions. Military One Source has a lot of stuff on there where, everybody's furloughed right now. There's the, Army, well, if you're in the Army or whatever branch you're in, emergency relief is available for people. They can tell you about what banks are offering loans and other, financial resources to people. So use Military One Source. Of course, TRICARE. So if you're specifically looking for counseling, you can go on TRICARE. You can type in the area that you live, and it will tell you what providers accept TRICARE. If you want to, use um, like a private therapist, you don't want to go on Military One Source, you can go on TRICARE. You can also reach out to your MFLAC at your base, within your spouse's unit, and then you can reach out to 988. 988 is the suicide prevention hotline, and you can call 988 and it's 24 hours. Someone will sit and talk with you or chat with you about whatever it is that you have going on. We have the Foreign Born Military Network that you can utilize, and those are, a great group of spouses that understand and are living the life. And so, you can connect with them. We have resources like BetterHelp and Headway. Those are two platforms that, I actually provide like private counseling through those resources. And then, you can also utilize faith-based and cultural groups, within whatever community that you're in. There are tons of Facebook groups available for different types of military spouses. There are Instagram groups. So find a group. And moving forward, just remember you deserve support. We all do. Life is just throwing so many things at us right now. I mean, a lot of things. And so we can't do it alone. We can't figure it out alone. And someone may have that answer that you need. So don't hesitate to reach out for help. Know that you belong here. I know that this is a very interesting world, the military world, but I do believe that, you're in it for a reason. And sometimes you just got to figure out what that is. And if you are going through a difficult time right now, healing is possible. I have worked with clients who have been at the lowest of lows, and over time, They have grown and healed and transformed, even after experiencing like extreme and severe trauma. And so healing is very, very possible. And one of the things I say to all my clients is one thing at a time, one day at a time. Just one thing at a time, one day at a time. And if you just focus on that, you'll eventually get there. You will eventually get there. So yeah, I'll open up to any questions, reflections, experiences that anyone may have now.
Do you have anything, Carmela?
No, I just wanted to say that I had agreed with what Isabella was sharing. And then
Mm.
also for me, in my experience, also whatever Abisola said was spot on. And I also would love to, chat with you also in private. But for me, one thing that has been very hard as a military spouse was to like prove yourself,
Mm.
every time like you move, because it just kind of feel like your spouse has their job kind of like served
Already set.
already. But then when we move, you have to prove yourself again, or do a job interview,
Yep. Yep.
network again, meet new friends. So all these sets of challenges are, you know, very hard to
Yeah.
digest. And then, for society, you're like, oh, you're a military spouse. You're like you were saying earlier, like a dependa, and you're
Yeah.
like, no, I'm gonna prove myself that, and I think most of us military spouses, we do want to prove that we're more than
Yes.
just,
Just a military
somebody's.
spouse.
Yes, yes.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, no, this particular PCS I will say was one of my most challenging when it comes to like career transition. I had been in MFLAC for 10 years and like I said, kind of like transitioned pretty easily. There were usually some type of MFLAC opportunity available. But this time around, when we PCS, like there were no MFLAC opportunities. And I felt like I was applying to everything. And between, government changes and jobs getting shut down, I just felt like I was hitting a wall over and over and over again. And it was discouraging, because again, you feel like I've been doing this for 13 years and I have, colleagues and peers that are, far advanced in their careers, have like longstanding private practices or are managers and executives. And I feel like I'm still struggling to like get over certain humps because I feel like I'm always starting over again. And so, yeah, it can be very discouraging and very difficult, to feel like you got to start from scratch each time. Um, and I think support groups like this just, really help us to know that we're not alone. You are not the only ones feeling that way and going through this. And, you do have worth and you do have value and you have a lot to bring to the table. And so just never, never forget that, whoever that's for, never ever forget that.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I see Caroline and Angelita. Do you guys want to add anything or say hi?
Um, oh, see. Hi. I'm a new military spouse, so hearing I can't
Mm.
like tell anything like from experience because I only gone through like 2 years worth of being a military spouse, but like hearing
Yay.
it and like I can I can like feel or like
Hmm.
I experienced some of it already, and like hearing you guys with like years of experience for me is kind of like giving me a hope, and like I know that
Mm.
like there's people that um was ahead of me and I can always ask questions, and like I'm like right now I'm doing all the routines and like prayers and stuff that like to help
Yeah.
my mental health already.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Abisola, again, we've been looking forward to this session since we knew that we were going to have you talk to us. And, it's one of the things that I've heard before, that sometimes a foreign-born spouse would like to have the help of a counselor, but I think it's something that's inside of us, that we always want a counselor that would understand where we come from. And,
Yes.
a foreign born would be like an absolute cherry on top, and we've always, I actually spoke to a counselor, not in a professional way, but we were talking, we were having conversation, and I was telling them, I would love to like talk to someone, or I would love to like have people go and talk to someone. It's just
Yeah.
difficult sometimes, because it's like I'm talking to someone that cannot relate to my experience,
Relate to
cannot
you.
relate to
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
background. And
hmm
it's like that genuine connection that you want to feel with
Yeah.
your counselor. Like, did you have any experience like that? Or like, did you talk to foreign born spouses that expressed that to you before?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people, counseling is like dating. Not every counselor is a good fit for you. And you have to find someone that's a good fit, because I think part of the healing process is being able to connect with someone enough that you can be vulnerable. And that's where the healing comes in. And I'm not going to feel comfortable being vulnerable with someone that I don't feel like a genuine connection. And we typically feel connected to people who understand us, have similar, experiences and things as us. And so, when you are looking for, a counselor, of course, if you go through like MFLAC, you don't necessarily have as many options. But if you go through some of these other resources, whether it's Military One Source, or like I mentioned, going on the TRICARE website, or BetterHelp, or Headway, you can actually, a lot of those websites, Psychology Today, you can filter, some preferences. So, like, for example, you can say, oh, I want a female counselor within this age range, or, this particular race, even, or that has experience with this or with that. So, there are ways that you can kind of filter some things out. And then sometimes it's trial and error. I will be honest, sometimes. I tell clients all the time, like, I may not be the counselor for you. And I understand that, and then for some people, they're like, oh, yes, I wanted a Nigerian because I'm Nigerian, or I wanted, a female because of whatever. And so yeah, I think sometimes it is trial and error finding someone that is a good match. But there are, people out there. And, for anyone on this call, if there's any way that I can support anyone in finding any type of counseling support, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can definitely, at least try to help lead you in the right direction.
Thank you for saying that, because I totally love that you said that counseling sometimes is like dating. Sometimes it's just not working out with one person. It doesn't mean that you have to count out the whole experience
Yes.
to be like, it's not for me.
Yes.
Counseling is not for me.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've heard
No.
that before.
I have too. I've had clients that have come and, we did have a good connection. And then they're like, oh, I really like just thought counseling didn't work because they had a not good experience with a previous counselor. And so I always tell people, like, don't completely knock it, because it may just be that you need somebody else, but the experience, I think, with the right person can be transformational.
Can I just share something quickly before we
hmm
go? I had that experience. My husband and I had an impasse when it came to education. So we actually, this person is not like, some of them may be counselors as well, but we went to see the chaplain on base, right? And he was like, ma'am, I'm also married to a foreign spouse, and she's from this country. And I know for a lot of foreigners, education is very important. And, this is America. You don't have to have a degree to have a job. And, that's just something that you have to let go. I sat there, my African self, and I was like, okay, and you're raised in a certain way. This was the chaplain. And I was just like, I wanted to cry. And I'm like, I'm going to respect this man. I know for him to be a chaplain, he had to have a degree. And I know he had a master's as well. And I'm like, this is America where, of course, you get jobs without a degree, correct? But a lot of jobs require a degree of a certain level. So I learned my lesson. I was having counseling, and my stipulations were female, preferably foreign born, and there was one, and a Christian as well, because there are certain things about Isabel. Isabel will tell you, okay, let me pray first. I don't want you thinking
Hmm.
I'm weird because how will, but you know what I mean? And sometimes if people, I won't even say of other faiths because someone may be a Muslim and they may understand why Isabel is saying she will pray first. Is if someone doesn't have a faith, they may be like, why isn't she acting prayer? No, I'll pray first before I make a decision. Oh,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So I've learned my lesson, and I'm definitely one of those people that will be going through the list. And there are
Yes.
certain things, and because I thought it was being so patronizing and saying it's the same with my wife. She says our kids have to go to college, and I was like, no, yeah. So I had that
Yeah. Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yes.
So before we wrap up, I just want to thank Abisola again for being with us
Yes.
tonight. Your insights are deeply appreciated, and I know our community has gained so much from what you've shared. And I'm pretty sure you're going to have some clients coming to you from our community. um, Everyone here, thank you for being part of this conversation. We have more inspiring and informative sessions lined up in the coming months, so please keep an eye out for our announcements. Would also love to hear your feedback. It helps us grow and serve you better. Please take a moment to fill out the short feedback form we shared in our chat. Lastly, reaching foreign-born spouses is still one of our biggest challenges. If you know someone who could benefit from this space, please invite them. At FMSN, we provide training, resources, mentorship, advocacy, and most importantly, a community, a place to be seen, supported, and empowered. Our goal is to ensure every foreign born military spouse can thrive economically, emotionally, professionally, no matter where their journey begins. The Foreign Born Military Spouse Network was born in response to the experience of spouses just like us who bring incredible strength, talent, and resilience to our communities. So please kindly share our website, our Facebook groups, and our resources like the Foreign Born Military Spouse Playbook. Let's make sure no spouse is left behind. That's our slogan. No spouse left behind. Um, Abisola, do you have any last words before we wrap up?
I will just thank you guys so much for having me as well. I really, appreciated this conversation and appreciated being here with you all. We are a foreign born military spouse family. And so if there's any way that I can support, please don't hesitate to reach out. I put my info on there. I did, yeah, my LinkedIn is also I'll add that. But yeah, you can reach out to me if you need anything. And even if you just have a question, or even if you're navigating through career things, that was one thing as an MFLAC, a lot of spouses would come in, they're trying to transition or figure out their next career move. And so if I can't help, I can probably point you towards a resource that can, because I've become very familiar after being an MFLAC with a lot of resources. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything.
Thank you so much, Abisola. Thank you to everyone who joined our call live, and thank you to you who is watching right now a recorded session. Again, if you have any questions, any concerns, anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Email us. Our email is in the chat box, info@fbmnetwork.com. Again, my name is Fadwa Harabi. I'm the outreach coordinator at FMSN, and it has been my pleasure having you all here tonight with us. Thank you so much and have a good night.
You too. Good night, everyone.